let's go ahead and get started with our first virtual homeschool program at home with Mote. So thank you all so much for joining us. I hope everyone is happy and healthy and enjoying your social isolation and all just, finding the resources that you can. So my name is Dana Henderson. Many of you know me as Miss Dana from Mote Marine Laboratory. For anyone not familiar with Mote, we are a marine science research lab and aquarium in Sarasota. And we do offer monthly homeschool programs. Well, of course, now we can't go to Mote, so I thought I would bring Mote to you. So this month we'll be doing a weekly series called At Home with Mote, where we're basically going to be exploring the ocean from our kitchen table. A couple of them I'll be bringing you to Mote, and we'll just be learning together, kind of getting at home with some different ocean animals. So friends, I am new to the virtual world, so please, I beg of you, give me feedback and let us know how we can make this the best experience for you guys and the most fun. So today we are getting at home with plankton, one of the most essential things on this planet. So the way today's live stream is going to go is I'm going to give you some fun facts, some slides with some really cool pictures and videos. And then after that, you all have the opportunity to participate in a STEM challenge against me, sort of. And we're going to try to create something really cool that we can share. Now, friends, please, I am used to teaching in person, so I would love feedback, guys. Chat with us, throw out some information in the chat. If you have a question that I cannot get to, or that my lovely moderators, Miss Elena and Miss Lauren, cannot get to, please go to our Flipgrid that we sent out. There's going to be a link in the chat as well. Please ask some questions, give us some feedback, and then definitely post your STEM challenge at the end. So, all right, are you ready to get at home with plankton, those tiny little creatures? All right, let's do it. So I'm going to share with you my screen. I'm so new to all this, guys. It's kind of fun and exciting. All right, let's get at home with plankton. And again, if you have questions during this, please put them in the chat, and if we cannot get to you, go to the Flipgrid. No worries, I'm happy to look through those and answer those later. All right, everybody. So there's a lot of talk about things that are essential in this world right now, and to me, there is nothing more essential than those tiny little creatures, the plankton. So everybody, do me a favor. At the same time, on the count of 3, let's all say a word that makes us think of plankton. Or when we think of plankton, what is the word that we think of? All right, are you guys ready? 1, 2, 3. Giraffes. Is that what you said? Oh man, why do I always say giraffes? I always say giraffes when I want to say a word. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3. Life. Did anybody else say life? Yeah, these plankton, not only are they so cool, weird, wild, and wacky, but they are responsible for life in the ocean and life on land as well. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to go through, try to figure out what is a plankton. I'm going to give you guys a couple of examples of plankton, and they're really amazing adaptations for survival in the ocean. And then, guys, we're going to learn how we can protect plankton. What does plankton have to do with us? And last but not least, we're going to compete in that STEM challenge together. So I hope everyone was able to access the pre-lesson activity guide. In that lesson, it's going to give you the material suggested. Now, everything that we do in these classes, guys, the materials should be things that you have lying around at home. If not, they should be pretty easy to collect. So everything is optional on those lists, and we're just going to kind of work together to do some of these STEM challenges and some of these activities together. Now, if you do them with us live in real time, it's a lot more fun. All right, let's get started. At home with plankton. So what is plankton? So we already kind of mentioned a couple things about plankton. Really, plankton is not a group of animals necessarily. They're not all related ancestrally. Basically, plankton refers to the way they move and the ecological niche or role that they play in the environment, okay? So they are very, very important. They are the basis of the food chain. And really, planktos just means drifter or wanderer. So although some of these plankton do have the ability to swim a little bit, they cannot swim against the current, okay? So they are going with the flow. And in these times right now, we all need to be a little bit more like the plankton, right? And go with the flow. So there are two main types of plankton. Now, these aren't the only types of plankton that we have. There are a couple other words that I'm not going to touch on too much today. But really, when we think of plankton, there are two major types. And the first one are the phytoplankton, and we refer to those as the plant plankton. And we've got our zooplankton. Now, it's spelled like zoo, pronounced zoo, but easy to remember because that's the animal plankton. So I'm going to run through a couple of my favorite examples of both phytoplankton and zooplankton and some of the adaptations that make them so cool and amazing and perfectly adapted for survival in the ocean. So let's start with the phytoplankton. All right, everybody do me a favor. Take a big, deep breath. Okay, let's do it one more time. Do it. It feels really good. Nice deep breath. Okay, look around. Think of plankton or a phytoplankton for that. Thank you, phytoplankton. Guys, our phytoplankton provides us with over 50% of the oxygen that we breathe, no matter where we are. So that's kind of a big deal. These guys are the basis of the marine food web. Do you love sharks? Do you love fish? Do you love octopus? Without all these guys, they wouldn't exist. The phytoplankton, also known as microalgae, again, they're the plant plankton. So the way they get their energy is they actually photosynthesize, just like land plants, and they obtain their energy from the sun. Now, these phytoplankton are tiny. They are microscopic their whole life. We cannot see them with our human eye, and they're planktonic their entire life cycle. Now, later when we learn a little bit about zooplankton, we're going to figure out that they're not actually all tiny, and they're not actually all plankton their whole life. All right, so I have 3 examples of phytoplankton. Again, these aren't the only types of phytoplankton, but these are some really neat ones. So the first one I want to show you guys is coccolithophores. That's fun to say. Let's say it 3 times fast. Coccolithophores, 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 coccolithophores. Let's sing it. Coccolithophores. Oh, I promise to never torture you guys with that again. Okay, let's say it like a robot. Go, lithopores. Did you do it? It's much more fun if you do it. Coccolithophores. These guys are phytoplankton, and they are super cool because they have this sort of calcium carbonate shell around them. So similar to a snail shell or what coral's made out of. Chalk is made out of calcium carbonate. Limestone is calcium carbonate. So these guys actually have this kind of chalky shell. But what I really want you to look at here on the coccolithophores, so fun to say, is the shape, okay? So one of the things about plankton is the thing, right, that makes them plankton is they cannot swim for the most part. They cannot fight the current, okay? Phytoplankton depend on the energy of the sun. So what do you think? Do you think they are found closer to the surface, or do you think we find them in the deep, dark ocean? You are exactly right. We're going to find these guys closer to the surface, okay? Because they need that sunlight. So these guys, the coccolithophores and all the phytoplankton, they need to be a little bit more positively buoyant. Now, I hope everyone had an opportunity to read the background questions on our pre-lesson activity guide, because that talks a lot about buoyancy, and the planktons need to be either positively buoyant or neutrally buoyant. So these phytoplankton, they need to be a little bit more positively buoyant so they can stay closer to the surface. Now notice their round shape. That round shape really helps them to float. Think about a beach ball thrown into the pool or something. So that round shape really helps these pocalithophores to float, get that energy they need, and from the sun. All right, moving right along. The next one are diatoms. Now, diatoms are so neat and so important. Has anyone ever heard of something called diatomaceous earth? Yeah, it's like a little, I think it's like it's just something that you use in the yard. I've never actually used it, so I don't really know what it's for, but it's made out of diatoms. It's made out of their silica casing. So silica is what makes up sand. These diatoms actually can be made into glass, believe it or not. And if you look at this picture, you may notice something kind of neat. What does it look like? To me, when I look at it, it looks, yep, you got it. It looks like a level. You've ever tried to hang a picture or something? Okay, so in that level, I wish I had one here. I forgot to grab mine. When you're trying to make it level, you're going to notice there's, it's like an air bubble in there, right? Oil and air. Air is lighter, more buoyant than oil, and oil is more buoyant than water, okay? So these diatoms actually have little bits of oil in their body that they can use to control their buoyancy, okay? So since that oil is a little bit lighter, a little bit more buoyant than the water, the oil helps them to float up to the surface. Now, if they're floating too much, they need to come back down a little bit. They can actually release a little bit of that oil, okay? So how many of you all have ever, let's just do a little experiment real fast. Hi, everyone. How many of you have ever poured oil into water? Okay, so if you pour it, we'll see how this goes. Notice how it all just rises up to the surface, okay? And that is because that oil is less dense and more buoyant. And this is something that the diatoms can actually control, which is really amazing. All right. Moving right along, friends. Okay, how many of you have ever heard of a dinoflagellate? Feel free to sing it if you want. Now, dinoflagellates, there's a very, very sort of famous one in these parts around here in Florida, and that is Corynea brevis. Now, the dinoflagellates are a type of phytoplankton, okay, that have what's called a flagella. Now, all of these plankton, they need to be able to move around in order to get their energy. My cat is like crying right now, you guys. I'm so sorry if you hear that in the background. Again, getting used to live, right? So these guys, di means two, and a flagella is basically like a little tail that they use to move around. Now, you might ask yourself, phytoplankton can move? I don't get it. I thought they were like plants. Well, think about a leaf or something, a plant that has to turn in order to get more energy from the sun, okay? So again, they're not necessarily getting up and moving around like animals do, but they do have a little bit of the ability to move. So the dinoflagellate, di meaning two, means that they have two flagella, okay? Now these dinoflagellates have a really neat adaptation for defense, and that is some of them can actually release a toxin, okay? Now, when they release this toxin, that can cause what's called an algae bloom, okay? And we'll talk about that in just a second. So this particular one that you're looking at here is called Corynea brevis. Anybody know what Corynea brevis can cause when they bloom? Yep, you guys know it, the red tide. And anyone that lives here in Florida has experienced this red tide before. So what happens when there's excess nutrients in the water, okay, it can cause these harmful algal blooms. Now, red tide is not the only harmful algal bloom, and Corynea brevis is not the only phytoplankton that can cause these algal blooms, okay? Now, one thing that we are doing at Mote is we are studying all these things, okay? So we are doing a lot of phytoplankton research at Mote, okay? We have just developed this brand new initiative to try to figure out how to fight red tide, or not fight it, but, you know, learn about it, learn about when it's going to bloom, and is there anything that we can do to actually stop it or keep it from spreading, okay? So it's called the Florida Red Tide Mitigation and Technology Development Initiative. Okay, 3 times fast. Florida Red, just kidding, don't say it 3 times fast. But again, we are working tirelessly, our scientists, to figure out some of those things, because anybody that has ever experienced a red tide, you know, it's kind of ironic because all that phytoplankton gives us so much oxygen to breathe, but when they start to release those toxins, it can actually zap oxygen from the water, causing all sorts of issues, causing fish kills and all sorts of things. Okay. Now, we do have a research department dedicated to phytoplankton, not just red tide and Carinia brevis, but we're looking at all different types of phytoplankton, and we're trying to figure out where the blooms are, what are the different strains, are they all toxic, are there some that aren't toxic, and we have found, yes, there are, and again, they're so important. So you can see here, this is Val in the lab in this picture, and he's basically working with some different cultures. They actually have a culture of Carinia brevis that's like 65 years old or something, which is kind of neat. On the left, you guys will see pictures of a couple ways that they find blooms out in the Gulf. So the top left one is a drone that they'll actually send out to look for these blooms, and the bottom left is a glider. It's called a Slocum glider. It's a AUV, an automatic underwater vehicle that they'll actually send down, and they can test water at depths. Okay. I may have to let my cat out just a second, you guys. I'm so sorry. Again, we are learning as we go, right? So, all right. So phytoplankton research at Mote. So again, phytoplankton that's just kind of skimming the surface. No pun there. Okay, pun intended for sure. Skimming the surface a little bit about phytoplankton. There's so much more to learn about phytoplankton and how important they are. But we are going to move on. Oh my gosh, you guys. I'm so sorry. You get a little sidebar of a cat meowing as we're doing this. So. All right, so let's move on from phytoplankton and learn a little bit about the zooplankton. Now, as amazing as phytoplankton are, as important and really cool adaptations that they have, the zooplankton are just incredible. Now, when I say a weird, wild, wacky world of plankton, the zooplankton are what I'm talking about. Now, when you guys said your word about plankton, how many of you said tiny, microscopic? Yeah, that's kind of what we think about, right? When we think of plankton, we think about not being able to see it. Well, the neat thing is that that's not always the case. So we do have some huge zooplankton, okay? So like this mola mola, also known as the ocean sunfish, can't really swim against the current. They're so funny. I love them. They look like something took a bite out of the back half of them, but you can see they're huge. They're bigger than that diver, but they can't really swim against the current. So they'll just kind of drift along a little bit. Now, so they're considered plankton because of that. Now, these guys are primary consumers. So on the trophic level of our food web, these guys are kind of the next step up from our phytoplankton. Most of them eat phytoplankton. Some of them may eat other zooplankton, but for the most part, these guys are primary consumers and they're munching on that phytoplankton. Now, the neat thing about zooplankton is that some of them spend their entire life as plankton. Now we call these holoplankton. They spend their whole life as plankton, while some actually grow out of that planktonic stage. Now we call these meroplankton because they spend a mere part of their life, okay? Now these are ridiculously diverse and abundant. There are tons and tons, millions of different zooplankton. And we're going to talk about a couple different of those. Now, they also have the largest migration of any animal on Earth, okay, which is wild to think about, okay? Now, this is what we call a vertical migration. So they're actually going up and down in the water column. So what do you think? Do you think they go up during the day and down at night? Or do you think they go up at night and down during the day? That's hard. That's like clapping your hand and rubbing your stomach at the same time. So what they do is they actually come up at night, okay, to feed. They go back down during the day. Why do you think they might do that? Yep, you got it, to avoid predators. Zooplankton make a tasty treat for all sorts of animals, right? Whales, basking sharks, all sorts of things, okay? Now in our marine mammals class, in a couple weeks, we're going to be talking and exploring about all those ways that the whales actually eat the plankton, okay? So make sure you tune in for that, okay? But they do, they're going up and down in the water column. Now, this is what our STEM challenge is going to be about, okay? Is creating this what we call neutral buoyancy, which is very important to a plankton, especially these zooplankton that have to go up and down in the water column. Because remember, they cannot really swim, okay? Some of them can swim a little bit, but they can't. Now, what would happen if they sink? They sink, they would not be able to, oh, sorry, guys. So if they sink, they wouldn't be able to live, right? They would end up dying, okay? And if they floated too much, they would be very, very vulnerable to those predators, okay? So they have to be neutrally buoyant, meaning they're not floating and they're not sinking, okay? So what are some ways that you all think that they might actually control their buoyancy? Do we have any scuba divers out there? Okay. How do you control your buoyancy? Yeah, that BCD vest, right? And also with your breath kind of up and down in the water column. Well, zooplankton don't really do that so much, but what they can do is control their surface area. So think about the last time you were in water and you tried to float. Everybody show me, even though I can't see you, we'll just pretend, what you have to do when you're in the water to float. Yes, right, we have to get really big, okay? Has anyone ever tried to float all scrunched up in a ball? Can't do it. You can't do it, right? So when you make yourself big, what you're doing is you're increasing your surface area, okay? And your volume is the same, but your surface area is bigger, okay? And when you are increasing that surface area, what you're doing is you're actually decreasing your density. You're becoming less dense. So put that all together and it makes you float, okay? So you're up there floating. Now you want to come back down a little bit. You're going to kind of bring everything in together. So these zooplankton can actually control that neutral buoyancy, okay? Now, if they can't control it that, if they are not able to do that, then their body has to be perfectly adapted to be neutrally buoyant. So again, positively buoyant, you float, negatively buoyant, you sink, neutral, right in the middle, okay? So it's like the Goldilocks of buoyancy, that neutral buoyancy. And that's what you guys are going to try to make here in just a minute in our STEM challenge. All right, I have some fun examples of zooplankton to show you, okay? Now, the first one is probably some of the most abundant in the ocean, and that is the meroplankton. Now, again, these are the ones that spend just a mere part of their life cycle as plankton. And so they grow up into something else, basically. So tons and tons of ocean animals, okay, start their life out as plankton. Tons of fish and all sorts of things. Sea stars, lots of invertebrates and that kind of deal. So I want you guys to take a moment, look at this picture, see if you can guess what this guy is going to grow up to be, okay? Type it in chat what you think it might be. Oh, sea star, good guess, good guess. Oh, all right, a shrimp, that's a good guess. Ah, nailed it. Who said stone crab? Yes, you guys got it. So what you're looking at here was the larval form of the Florida stone crab. Now I'm going to go back because I want to show you something really neat. So this picture here is a scan electron microscope picture that was created by Dr. Phil Gravenese from Mote Marine Laboratory. Now, he's one of our scientists that are studying the effects of ocean acidification on stone crabs, spiny lobster, and their larvae. So unfortunately, guys, something going on in the ocean right now where basically the acidity is increasing a little bit due to climate change, and there's that cat, guys. And it's kind of breaking down their shell. And Dr. Phil, I love it. How many people call him that, right? Is researching that, okay? So this was a picture that he actually created that he submitted to the Journal of, oh, don't drink that. My cat just tried to drink the oil water mixture. Don't do that. You guys could see it. It's really funny. So so he created that, and he actually submitted it to the Journal of Plankton Research, which is really neat to be able to see. And then the picture on the left is one that he took just with a regular microscope. Okay, so this is what they look like when they're an adult. And I'm going to show you all a video, and please forgive me, I couldn't figure out how to get this particular video into my slides, so I've got to stop. Hi. I want to share a different screen with you. Okay, so this is a video that Dr. Gravenese sent me. And this is a female stone crab actually releasing those larvae, okay? So it just goes to show you how much planktonic larvae is in the ocean at any time. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. Look, all of those little dots are baby crabs, okay? I'll show it one more time. So this female stone crabs, and some of you guys may have had stone crab claws as a meal. It is a pretty sustainable seafood. And you can see all of those baby crabs coming off of her apron. This is her plastron here. We call this their apron. All right. And so that stone crab larvae is a part of that miroplankton that we talked about. All right. Oh, the phronima, the pram bug. How many of you have seen this before? Oh, my favorite zooplankton, okay? Anybody that, especially parents out there, if you've ever seen the movie Alien, this is what the alien was actually modeled after. The pram bug, the phronima. They are so weird. They're adaptations, and when I say weird, guys, I mean cool. And their adaptations for moving are just wild, okay? And for grabbing their prey. So they have claws and legs, and that they use to catch their prey, kill their prey. But what is so weird about them that I love is they are basically hitchhikers, okay? So I'm going to show you a video of a pram bug that was caught from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, really amazing organization. And what you're going to see here is a phronima living inside of something called a salp. Now, salps are a ctenophore, which is kind of like a jellyfish that doesn't sting. There are millions of them in the ocean. And these phronima have figured out a way, they have adapted this sort of parasitic behavior to live in them, okay? So guys, I'm gonna play this. While I'm playing it, I'm gonna run and let my cat into the other room, so. So check this guy out, I'll be right back. So weird, right? So you can see the little guy right there. And this is that jellyfish, that salp that they have found basically eating away at the insides, and then not only do these guys ride around in them, sort of like in a little underwater vehicle, but they'll lay their eggs and attach them to the south wall. Pretty incredible. The Phronima. The siphonophores. So all these planktons. So again, they have to be able to make their own, they have to have energy, right? So the phytoplankton are making it from the sun. The zooplankton have to get their energy from eating stuff, okay? They have to be able to move, right? So they're manipulating their buoyancy. They may have a flagella. They may have legs. They have to be able to move, right, to survive. They also have to be able to defend themselves. Now, the siphonophores are a group of plankton that are just amazing to me. Now, these guys, their best defense is to sting. How many of you all have ever seen a Portuguese man-of-war before? Sorry, I should have put a picture on here of one. So I have a nasty scar myself from a Portuguese man-of-war. So they're not actually jellyfish. They're a group of organisms called hydrozoas that are all kind of coming together. Now, jellyfish are also considered plankton. Okay, everybody give me your best jellyfish, right? Give me like a jellyfish. Okay, they're best jellyfish. So jellyfish are planktonic too. So when you see them kind of pulsing their bells, that's what they're doing. They're manipulating that buoyancy, right? They can't necessarily swim. They're planktonic, okay? Now siphonophores, not exactly jellyfish, a little bit different, but they do have those stinging cells, okay? Now this video, this is an amazing resource, Nautilus Live. So Bob Ballard that discovered the Titanic, this is his ship. And they basically deploy underwater robots to go out and find really cool stuff. So check out that link. There's so many cool things. But this was a discovery of a siphonophore. So let's check it out.
What is that? Oh. Garbage? Yeah, my goodness. What is this? Like a siphonophore? Yep. Wow. Oh, how cool. What? I mean, oh my gosh.
So how crazy is this, guys, right? So this is an organism that they are finding on the sea floor. Now, we're not going to watch the whole video just for the sake of time, but I definitely encourage you all to go. Let's stop this. Do go on and check out and watch some more of these videos. But again, these siphonophores, just amazing. There is one particular siphonophore. I love how excited the scientists get when they find this stuff. It's really fun. So these siphonophores, there's one that is known to be longer than a blue whale. Okay, so that the thought of plankton being very, very tiny is not always the case. They can be huge. Now, a couple other types of zooplankton are copepods, Daphnia krill. So copepods is what Plankton from SpongeBob was modeled after. These guys, they use their legs to kind of create a current to filter in phytoplankton. This guy in the top right is a Daphnia, also known as a water flea. And then, of course, the bottom right is the main food of baleen whales, which is krill. Oh, let me go back. So copepods are probably the most abundant organism in the ocean, or one of them. Any guesses how many are out there? And I totally just gave it away. I don't even know how to say this number, but this is the number. Oh, you can't really see it because my picture in the corner. A lot, okay? There is a lot. I don't even know how you say this number. It is very, very abundant. Those copepods are vital to the health of our ecosystem. So guys, before we do our STEM challenge, okay, we've learned a little bit about some really cool adaptations, okay? We've kind of learned their ecological role and that kind of deal. So we probably already know the answers to these questions, but why are they important? Why care? Why are they essential? Well, that oxygen, right? Gives us 50% of the oxygen we breathe. Not only that, when plankton die and they sink to the bottom, guys, they become a part of the carbon cycle, and they actually can provide us with fuel, natural gas. Organisms like the diatoms provide things like glass. Some things provide building materials over time. So plankton, there's a lot going on there. Of course, we already talked about them being the base of the food web. Without the plankton, nothing else really exists, okay? I don't love that picture of that shark at the top. He looks kind of scary, but you guys get the point. So that base of that food web, and I don't know about you guys, but I love the ocean and the animals in it. So it would be terrible to lose even one. So guys, this real quick is a video because of them being the basis of the food chain. Everything else that eats them is going to accumulate whatever they eat, okay? Now, unfortunately, we are starting to find something in plankton that is now being transferred to other animals and then eventually transferred to us if we eat seafood. Any guesses? Yeah, plastic. Yeah. So this is a video that just shows plankton, and you can see this is a copepod. He's using his little legs. But all of those neon green dots are microplastics. Those are plastics, and you can see the copepod is ingesting those microplastics. So we don't have to watch it all. You kind of get the idea. But again, just another reason why it's so important to keep trash out of our ocean, reduce, reuse, recycle, cut down our plastic use. Because again, everything that plankton eats goes up the food chain. And of course, without plankton, we have no seafood. And so I'm sure a lot of you guys love to eat sustainable seafood out there. And last but not least, plankton are kind of a big deal, okay? So I'm sure all of you have heard of climate change, all the excess carbon dioxide going on, being released in the atmosphere. That carbon eventually sinks down into the ocean, okay, and can cause some major problems. But that phytoplankton especially is what we call a carbon sink. So they actually are taking in that carbon dioxide and then releasing oxygen for us. So it's a bit more complicated than just that. If you are interested in the science, please let me know. I can send you a little more information. But long story short, they help combat climate change. They're kind of a big deal. Alrighty, folks. Well, we've learned about climate change. I'm going to just start making up random songs for you guys. So if you have a song, please help me out, especially if it's a plankton song. So it is time. We've learned a little bit about plankton. We've learned why they're important. We've learned about their weird, wild adaptations to move, to eat, to defend themselves. Are you ready? Oh man, see live. Oh man, that was going to be such a good intro to the STEM challenge. Before the STEM challenge, check out what we can do. These are just things that we can do. I don't know if you can see me in my little corner here, but this is one way that I refuse single-use plastics. I take around this cup and my little reusable silverware. There's a straw in there. I have it with me in my bag everywhere I go. So these are just some ways that we can help protect our plankton and thus protect us. Okay, so I'm not going to read all this off for you guys. You can read it and check it out. But the last one I want you to see, take care of your watershed. That's basically everything that you do in your house is going to affect the ocean and affect the plankton. And a nice plug for next week, because next week that's what we'll be learning all about is the watershed. So if you don't know what it is yet, don't worry, you'll know next week. Okay, let's pretend I didn't do that awkward buildup before, and let's do it now. Watch it be the wrong one again. Ah, dun, 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 the STEM challenge. All right, friends, so go ahead and get out everything that I had you guys acquire earlier, okay? And we are going to do a little bit of a STEM challenge, and you can help me create a neutrally buoyant plankton as well, okay? So, I'm sorry, I do not have a 2-liter, so I'm just using this. And basically what you want to do is we're going to take about 5 minutes, all the materials that you guys have gathered, okay? So I asked you to gather some positively buoyant materials, so materials that can float, and some negatively buoyant materials, so materials that can sink. And then what you have to do is try to put them together, okay? Now the object is to try to get it to be neutrally buoyant and just float right in the middle of whatever container you are using, okay? Now, it's almost impossible to do it. I have done it maybe like once in my life, okay? So I encourage you to try again, okay? For our challenge today, we are just going to take 5 minutes to do it though. But again, if you don't get it, go back, do it again. But what we want to do is we want to see whose plankton can be neutrally buoyant or just sink the slowest, okay? So if you can't sink, if it's not quite neutrally buoyant, if it sinks really slowly, we're going to count that as a win, okay? So you don't want it to float. You don't want it to sink super fast. You want it to either in the middle or just very, very, very slowly, okay? So I have some materials here. Now, any of you that don't have materials with you, I want you to please help me to create mine because I can use some help, all right? So I have some positively buoyant stuff here. I have a sponge that I'm going to cut up maybe, okay? Now, please make sure you ask your parents before you just go start cutting up sponges. I have some sponges here. I have some toothpicks. I have a wine cork. I have a ping pong ball. Okay, so just some various positively buoyant things. Okay, I asked you guys to grab some negatively buoyant things, so some things that sink. So I have some various coins. I have some paper clips. And then I also asked you guys to grab stuff that you could kind of combine them with, okay? So what I'm going to use today, I have some clay that I'm going to use, okay? So any suggestions? And also, as we're making them, not only are you thinking about neutrally buoyant, but think about creating sort of like a plankton superhero too, putting all those adaptations together. How does your plankton defend itself? How does it move? All those different things, okay? So just think about that, all right? So a little bit of a follow-up, okay? Discuss with your family. Oh, my plankton shoots out spikes or whatever, okay? So let's see. What should I use to make the base of my plankton? Yeah, okay, yes, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a tiny little ball out of my clay, okay? I've not tested this, but I'm guessing it's it's negatively buoyant. Okay, maybe a little bit bigger. All right, what should I add next? Oh man, you guys are having so many good ideas. So I'm so sorry. I'm not going to be able to do all your ideas, but they're really, really good. So I'm just going to pick a couple. Ooh, somebody said, toothpicks. Okay, that's what I was thinking. So I'm going to take some toothpicks. These are going to be my plankton's defense mechanism. Okay. Since our plankton can't go up and down in the water column, we have to try to make him make it ultimately neutrally buoyant. All right. Yes. All right, what do we think? Do you want to test it? Or should I add something else? What do we think? What do we think? All right, let's try it. Let's just test it. Let's see. Let's see what's going to happen here. Sank really fast. So what do I need, guys, if it sink really, really fast? What do you think? Oh, you're right, the sponge. That's what I think too. So I'm going to cut some sponges, and I'm going to stick those to the end. How is yours going? Someone tell us what materials you're using. Okay, so the clay in the water is probably not the best, but that's all right. You can get messy. All right, I'm going to stick a sponge on each end. Oh, you guys. Messy, messy. Maybe clay is not the best thing to use. Okay. Oh my gosh, look at this. Okay. I mean, kind of reminds me of a plankton, right? There's a hair in there. No extra charge for that. All right, let's try it again. Look at this, guys. Yes. Ooh. Oh, yes. Rubber band. Oh, I love it. Okay. All right, here we go. I'm going to try it again. Oh, definitely slower. Look at that. It's on the bottom. All right, one more minute to try to fix it up. And then I want to do a little challenge with one of my coworkers that's out there. Oh my goodness, you guys, the clay, don't use the clay. Clay is not working. So I'm just going to use toothpicks and sponges. Okay. I'm so excited to hear what you guys came up with because mine is not working. Okay. All right, Miss Elena. I want to challenge you. Are you ready?
Hello, hello. I'm here. So I'm in my kitchen and I created my little plankton.
Oh, show it to yours.
I used a piece of sponge and a rubber band and 2 paper clips, and I was just testing it. And I think, I think that it's on Miss Dana, so they can't see me. So as soon as I'm up, I will show you mine. Is that good? Can you see me? All right. Okay, so here goes. Ready? I put it in and it floated, but then I found if I squeezed some of the air out of it, I got a pretty good, oh, it was working, I promise. Hold on.
Ah!
It's floating. I'll take a little more air out.
Yeah. So oh man, you're good.
He's almost there. He's trying.
He's trying. Yes. Does your plankton have any fun adaptations? Like how would it?
Oh yes. So it's a scrubby sponge. So one side is smooth and one side is scrubby. So that's his defense because it's rough and no one's gonna want to eat it. And I want to hold it over the computer, but I don't want to drip all over the computer. And he has metal pieces, which of course wouldn't be metal, but he has metal pieces are his support structures. And of course, you got a rubber band. And if you've ever been smacked by a rubber band, you know that's no fun at all. So he is adorable, and he's going to go back in there. Bye, guys.
Bye, Miss Elena. Still you. Hey, there I am. All right. Again, guys, we're learning together. So let me try mine. I had to kind of redo it. It looks exactly like a plankton, don't you think? Okay. That's its a really unique adaptation is it is able to transform into a totally different shape at will. Okay. So let's see. Let's drop it in. Oh, he's well, you guys, I'm gonna keep working on this. think you guys have some really good suggestions on, I'm going to add maybe a coin, maybe 2 coins on the top. Again, just trying to get that neutral buoyancy. Give yourself a round of applause for trying. Even if you're not done yet, keep on trying. So these live streams are going to be so much more fun with you participating with them. I'm missing my students so much. So to be able to teach you all is really, really fun, okay? So please do a follow-up with that. Try to create your ultimate neutrally buoyant and adapted plankton. Go to our Flipgrid page, post a video of you doing it, of you doing the plankton race. If you have the 2 leaders like I suggested, you can have 2 race against each other. And again, the slower the better, okay? All right. Couple last things just to share with you before we head out. Dun, 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 that is done. Great job, guys. So again, just post that. Also, if you want to post a picture of it and tag us on social media, At Home with Mote, hashtag At Home with Mote. We would love to see your creations. These are a couple of plankton resources that I found very helpful. There are tons of resources out there, guys. So again, we scratched the surface of plankton, but there's so much to learn. But if you check it out, the very last one is really cool. It's from Woods Hole. It's a really simple instruction guide, but it's how to make your own plankton net. So if you live near the water, any water, you can actually make your own plankton net, go and do a plankton tow and actually look and see what's in your own water, which is really amazing. So these are our upcoming classes. Next week on April 15th, we have At Home with Ocean Conservation. It's going to be a lesson in watersheds. It's going to be a little bit different than today, as in I'm not going to be showing much of a PowerPoint, but instead we're going to be building a watershed together and then going through different scenarios on what affects your watershed, what is a watershed, what affects it, and what does it have to do with ocean conservation. So basically, what does being at home have to do with ocean conservation? April 22nd, I'm actually going to be at Mote, and you all will get to meet our education ambassador turtles, and we'll also do a little simulation about sea turtle research. And then on April 29th, we'll be learning about those animals, some of them which eat plankton, and all their really cool adaptations. We'll be making a blubber mitt, we'll be simulating the way they feed, and I'll be showing you some really cool stuff from marine mammals. So I hope you all can join us for that. Last but not least, we do have a Google Classroom for Mote Education now. It is full of amazing resources for marine science education, okay? So please, if you have a Google account, go and check out the classroom. We got the class code below. Take a screenshot of this or go to our Mote Education Facebook page. We also have a YouTube channel now. So we're trying to bring you as much marine science content as we can. On that Flipgrid, please leave us any and all comments, suggestions, concerns, whatever it may be. My homeschool family here at Mote is my family, and so now to be able to extend it to the state and the country and wherever is really, really exciting. So we want to keep this sense of community, and so again, I appreciate you all so very much. Please join us next week. Show us your plankton, and I hope I see you soon. Bye, everybody.